Hey mamas, it's Krista Noel, founder of The Intuitive Divorce, and I'm hopping on here straight after class with some after class musings with my beautiful team member, Master Coach Joe Young. And once again, we just got out of a deliciously powerful and impactful and moving, wonderful class with a tremendous group of mothers. And today, we were still diving into unpacking difficult conversations with our children, which always segues into difficult conversations with ourselves. Because what's the story that's playing in the background? And I'm going to just start, Joe, with like the way that we ended class today, which was really hammering in the message that you want to tell your children, I love you enough that I'm not going to talk to you about this. I love you enough that I'm not going to talk to you about this. And I know that might like send shivers down your spine at first because we're so used to the dance that when our children need something or they ask us a question or they provoke us or they trigger us or they want something or they're spiraling down or there's chaos, it's like we have to come in and give an immediate answer, an immediate fix. We have to immediately make it feel better. Well, as Joe so beautifully said in some of our notes for class, that if we want our children to get comfortable with their feelings, guess what? We got to be comfortable with our own feelings. And that means we've got to be able to honor what's coming up for us, take a pause, skip a beat, set some boundaries. And this is where, again, boundaries, everybody like freaks out boundaries. They're going to get mad. They're going to be upset. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to like it. What if it's the most loving thing that you can do for your children and yourself and even your soon to be ex and anybody else involved? Because that's the reality and that's the truth. Because boundaries shut down chaos. But first and foremost, you've got to get clear. What's at the crux of this chaos? Why is this happening? What is going on? What is my role in it? What is the story? What do I believe about it? There's so much there. But I think, again, when a mom can give herself a pause and a get free pass, I don't have to have all the answers. I just have to be clear that I'm not putting you in the middle of the chaos. And I'm not discussing the fact that we are getting a divorce. But I want you to know that I am getting a divorce, that this isn't salvageable, that this isn't your job, that this is between your dad and I. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up, and we'll go into it during this discussion, but is a lot of children get weaponized in divorce, and one parent may use them as messengers, or they may use them to like do their vying and ask mom this, or can you bring this home, or can you this, or just tell mom all she has to do, blah blah blah. Worst thing you can possibly do, because at the end of the day, you know what? All your kids want is to be kids, to live their lives, to go to school, to do their activities, be with their friends, to laugh. They don't want to be talking about divorce.
Yeah, I think that this is particularly important. Right now, we have several moms that have these tween kids, right? The tween years. And they're old enough to know what's going on. And they think that they're old enough to be able to help fix and pull together and sway and all the things. And kids at that age can so easily get caught in the middle at any age.
Mm-hmm.
But at this particular age, it becomes really difficult because they're also old enough to play one parent against the other. Mom, if you would just acquiesce to what dad wants, if you would just let dad back in, if you would, all that, then life could go back to
You
normal.
could just forgive dad.
If
Just
you
let
could just
dad come
forgive him.
home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're not capable of seeing the death by a thousand cuts. They're not capable of seeing the years of dysfunction and sometimes even abuse that go on before we ever get to these points, nor do we want them to see those things. But
Mm-hmm.
now, all of a sudden, as the person who perhaps has initiated the divorce, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, maybe I am not doing the right thing. Maybe I should lean into based on the advice of what, a 12-year-old? or
Or
13-year-old.
14-year-old, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds absurd, but we see how it happens because, to your point, Kristen, we've spent years making sure that our kids are okay, taking care of things. We've spent years tolerating the intolerable. And so when we change the rules of engagement, as we call it, our kids aren't going to like it, right? Because all they know is what's been familiar.
Mhm.
So, how do we keep them out of the chaos between what's going on with mom and dad? How do we keep them out of the middle? And we simply just don't put them there. It's that simple. Rather than deciding, what do I tell them about their dad? What do I tell them about why we're getting divorced? Right? It's so important not to bring them into the chaos so that they don't feel stuck in the middle.
I think the important distinction that you made also is like in this one particular situation where we have a father who is literally weaponizing the kids and really using them as messengers and doing all of his vying. They don't know the difference. They don't understand. They're kids. They think if you just let dad come home, everything goes back to normal. But it was a dysfunctional house. It was a house of manipulation. It was a house with bullying, emotional bullying. Because at the end of the day, what do kids want? They just want to be back in their house. They want to be back with their friends. They want to be back with their routines. They don't know what's going on in mom and dad's relationship. They don't know how much mom was stuffing down, how much she was losing pieces and parts of herself, how much she was being emotionally abused. The thing about this is that this isn't the conversation you have with your kids. Another important thing about this was this one mom was working so hard not to disparage dad, to keep her side of the street clean, that she was having a hard time making a distinction between what do I tell them, what's okay to tell them, what's not okay to tell them. So I said, it's okay to clarify facts and to say, hey, that's not the truth. But I'm also just going to tell you that this conversation about our marriage is off the table because that's between dad and I. So there's a distinction between you can say what dad is telling you is not the truth. And I'm sorry he's saying that to you because I'm not going to do that here. I want you to feel safe to have conversations with me about how you're feeling and what we can do together to get you through this transition. Change is hard for everybody, but it's temporary, buddy. It's temporary. Remind your kids and enfold them into the conversation. What could we do aside from letting dad back in the house? What could we do to feel better here? What could I do to help you? And, that's the conversation. That's what we want to focus on. But it's not about being a doormat. You want to clarify truth and you also want to acknowledge them and you want to say, I hear you. And you also want to remind them that's not your job. It's not your job. Your job is to be a kid, not to be in this divorce. And by the way, kids don't want to talk about divorce.
Yeah. And that's why we said today, a common answer can be because I love you so much, I'm not going to have this discussion with you.
Hmm.
You're reminding them that it's not because you don't think they're capable of hearing it, that you don't trust them, whatever the stories might be that they get into around it. The reason I'm not going to discuss this with you is because I love you too much and I don't want you in the middle.
Hmm.
It's not fair to you. And so you, mama, have to know that first.
Mm.
You have to be comfortable with that first. And we can often say, yeah, I know this is what's best for my children. And yet we can so easily get swayed out of wanting to acquiesce to what it is that they want. But we have to know better. So I
Well, and
loved the
also,
assignment we gave our mamas this week.
oh, yeah, that was a good one.
You want to talk about that? Because that
Go
was
ahead. You go ahead.
okay, so, we got into the conversation about when these things are coming up, when fear is coming up about, my kid is never going to forgive me. They're going to think I ruined their lives. They're going to be on team dad, all the things that fear can lead to. It's so important to remind yourself of what kind of mom you are. You know, I am a mom who loves her kids, who has always put them first, who has always been there for them to the best of her ability. who wants to make sure that their safety is first and foremost, who cares about their mental well-being, on and on and on.
Well, you know
So,
what? I just want to jump on that. I want to just
yeah,
jump in
please.
and say, you're also demonstrating for them and teaching them to trust themselves. Check in to your body and to your intuition and ask yourself, how does this feel? Is this truth? This thing that I'm hearing grandma say about you or dad say about you, like, how does that make me feel? And does that feel like truth to me? So, a lot of the women today in class were coming in and they were saying, we were really asking them, like, why are you afraid to have difficult conversations with your kids? What are you holding back on? Because, mark my words, not having the conversation is not solving the problem, right? But a lot of them came back and said, fear of being the bad guy,
Yeah,
which is such an honest feeling. But the thing is, mama, if you're not comfortable sitting in the discomfort of the unknown and the change, what are you demonstrating to your children? What are you saying to them? Danger, danger, danger. I can't be in discomfort. I can't be in the unknown. I can't deal with change. So, this is why so much of what you're going through, and I'm not expecting you to have all the answers. But with you all of a sudden in that situation, they come home and they're really triggered, and you're in this conversation, and you're the bad guy, and I hate you, and you're ruining our lives, and I can't believe this. And then in the story you're telling in the background is, oh my God, they're jumping on team dad. I'm scarring them forever. I'm ruining their lives. They're going to become a sad statistic. This is when you lean in and you say, hey, is that the truth? Who am I? Who am I to you? What do you know about me? What do you know about me as your mom? And that is like such a softener, puts everybody back in their heart because you know what? You're allowed to be mad at me. You are allowed to be mad at me, but you know I love you. You know I'd move mountains, and I'm going to move mountains to help us navigate this change and this transition. This is why it's so critical. We could give you a zillion examples of this today. And that's why this class was so powerful because while there was this teaching component, there was just this juicy workshop component where women have a space to come and just be raw and real and not package themselves and not come up with pretty little answers. They can just say, I'm afraid my kids are going to be mad at me. I'm afraid my kids are going to abandon me. I'm afraid, you know, that's how we get to the crux of what that really is. What's really underneath that? What can we do about it? How can we navigate through that for you, mama, so that you can help your kids navigate through it? That's why it's so powerful.
yeah, absolutely. Being so clear about what your truth is so that when all the fears play out and all the doubts play out, you get to come back to the truth of who you are for your kids, for yourself, and you ground yourself in the truth. I know that this is what is best for my kids, even when I feel doubtful. I know that
Mm.
this conversation is not something I should be having with my kids. So, how do I stand in the truth of that and love them enough to say, I'm not going to have this conversation with you right now? Or how do I love them enough to be really honest with them and say, I don't know. I don't know what this all looks like, but what I do know is that I have always had your back and I will continue to always have your back. I will do what is best for you because I have always done what's best for you. And so, you have to know that first because otherwise it's just words and kids will see straight through it.
Hmm.
So, getting really clear about who you are as a person, who you are as a mom, what you know your truth to be is going to be the anchor through every piece of doubt that's going to show up.
And it's steeped in truth and conscious communication and
Yes.
heart and intuition. And that is felt. And it may not change instantly. As a matter of fact, it won't. But it will change within you. It will change how you're feeling inside. And you're going to keep repeating it. And you're going to keep saying it. And I got to say one story that was this will demonstrate this specifically. We had one mom who was telling us how dad was constantly saying all this stuff about mom over here. And he'd come home and he'd try to talk to his mom, and his mom just kept saying, "Hey, buddy, the discussion about the divorce is off the table." And he'd still keep coming home and coming home and coming home from dad's house. And she'd say, "Off the table, off the table, off the table." And she'd also reiterate, "I love you so much that I'm not going to be having these conversations with you. And this is why. And I wish dad wasn't having these conversations with you. But you know what? You can count on in this house." And one day he came home and he again said something to mom. And then he just answered the question to himself, to his mom. He said, "It's probably off the table, right, mom?" It's like, because this is how boundaries work. It's not going to feel really comfortable and easy initially. And you're going to have to probably do it a couple times. And you know what? People eventually get on board.
Yeah.
And you're going to begin to realize how much space opens up, how much chaos just is cut out, and how it is just such a game changer. And it also demonstrates to your children how to set their own boundaries so that they don't end up in these relationships where they lose themselves and they lose their voices and they're unseen and they're not heard, they're not valued, they're not validated. Because I know you're a fierce mama bear and I know you want the best for your kids. And you know where that starts? Right here with you.
Hmm.
So, this is the beautiful work that gets unpacked in our class every week. And again, I'll reiterate, mark my words, we are diving into all sorts of divorce strategy and dealing with what's coming up and where people are at various aspects of their divorce process. But at the crux of this is the condition that you are in so that you can go home and have these tough conversations. Because mark my words, the toughest conversations are probably with your kids because that's who you're with all the time. They've got the big questions. Their lives have been, absorbed into this divorce, but there is a much easier, much more stable, grounded, loving way to do this. And it's with boundaries and it's with honoring what you need right now, right here. So we just wanted to pop on and give you that little nugget and to just give yourself a hall pass also to trust yourself and to decide what is off the table and why is it off the table? It's off the table because I love you so much. I don't want to drag you into this.
Yeah. Yeah. Boundaries are the key. And oftentimes they are really just about you setting them with you. What am
Mhm.
I willing to talk about, not talk about, tolerate, not tolerate, accept, not accept? And once you're clear on that, it makes things so much easier.
Mm.
And it is the most loving thing you can do for you and your children and everybody else around you.
And the last little juicy bit I'm going to leave you with is remember who you are.
Mm, yeah.
Remember who you are
The
as a
truth of
mother,
who you
the
are.
truth of who you are, the truth of who you are as a mom. And the assignment that we gave today was that the moms in our class, which they actually came up with, was that they're going to write themselves letters to remind themselves of who they are. And they're going to read them in class next week because they decided they wanted to hold each other accountable, like be accountability partners, and to hold that space for each other and hold that vision for each other and to be able to really like push each other back up when we wobble. Because when our kids say something that triggers us or someone says something that triggers us during this process, it's so easy to get rattled. But when you can come back to that core of the truth of who you are, nothing is going to shake that.
That's right. So we invite you to also use this prompt this week.
Hmm.
I am dot dot dot. Fill
Hmm.
in the blanks. What is the truth that you know about you?
And I'm sure it's beautiful.
I'm sure
Otherwise,
it's
you wouldn't
beautiful.
be
And I'm
here.
looking forward to doing it
Yeah,
too.
I know. I know. And so, yes, we definitely encourage you to do it because you need that reminder.
Yeah,
You need that reminder and that reflection. And it's something you can build on. And I think that you might be really surprised when you sit down to do this. I think it'll just put some wind underneath your wings and remind you what a beautiful mama you are. So thank you for joining us today. Please check us out at intuitivedivorce.com or on social media, Intuitive Divorce, or on our app, Intuitive Divorce, because we're constantly putting out so much information to support you along this journey that we know is very difficult and is such an upheaval. And we don't want you to have to do it alone. And we'd love for you to reach out to us if you are interested in learning more about our program, because it is just a game changing,
Mm,
heart opening, beautiful
mhm,
healing journey. And the moms
mhm.
that are doing that are divorcing smarter, healing faster, protecting their kids, and reclaiming their lives.
Yeah. And we have some that come back time and time and time again because the freedom, the circle of friendship, the tribe that gets created in there is
Hmm.
unlike almost anything I know.
Hmm.
It's really supportive, and we have new moms, people who haven't even told their soon to be exes yet, through women who are well on their path. And so, it's welcoming for everyone. And I think it's just a true testament to the fact that when women join together and don't feel like they have to do this alone, there is such power and such wisdom that shows up week after week. So we invite you to join us.
Yeah, it's certainly powerful.
Yeah.
So, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Yep.
Have a
Talk
beautiful
soon.
day.
See you
Bye.
next week.